Hey everyone, this next video, the gentleman's name is Jason Miller, and I just wanted to throw in this narration of myself giving an explanation. I'm gonna have to break this down into two parts because we had over 3 hours of an interview recorded. He and I spoke. We called, we talked on the phone, and it was incredible. He and I really touched on every level of discussion. Really, I think I made a really good connection with Jason. So even after our interview, when we had our phone conversation to begin with, I kept telling him, don't tell me anymore, don't tell me anymore. I want it to come out in the interview. I want to be just as surprised as anybody else in the things that I was hearing. And, you know, our conversations kept going down so many different rabbit holes of things that we've experienced and the connections. And it was really amazing. I couldn't wait for the interview. So we got into this interview, the details of what happened to him. The impact of what happened to him and his family really impacted his life from that moment forward, just like all of us that survive encounters. I mean, you know, it grabs a hold of you. And then the second part is going to be a lot of his investigations and, you know, having hair samples tested and things like that. I'm telling you, the first half is going to be phenomenal. The second half is going to be maybe even more phenomenal on an information level as far as the things that he's going to describe. I can't wait for you guys to see it, or to see it and hear it. Even after the interview, I was trying to get started putting all of this together with the editing and stuff, and then we ended up getting back on the horn with each other and talking for like another 3 hours. I mean, my God, till like 2 a.m. just the conversations just flowed. I am really excited about this interview. I hope you guys like it. Please like and subscribe, share it with your friends. You know, I'm trying hard to grow this channel, and it's so important that you get, you know, that people hit the like. I didn't know how important these things are, but here we are begging for the bare minimum of hitting the likes and subscribing. Please, if you enjoy this content, do those things, and I know you're gonna like this one, folks.
Leaping round the room like an eat-up baboon. Him and his dancing, yelling, I have no regrets. I do it for the love, the rush, the buzz, the hush. Whatever turns my knees so much to hit the lift. Even if you gotta sift through the shit to get to the twist. You smile high like it's your last line, like you never get another try. Do it right, do it for the ride, for the heat, for the night.
Boy, it's good to see you.
Yeah, finally, instead of over the phone for a few minutes. How you doing?
Yeah. So I take it from your email address saying 1970. That means you're 54.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah,
Am
my
I in
wife has
trouble?
1970 on hers too, and she's 54.
Okay.
But yeah, man, you're going to see me occasionally taking notes, Jason.
Good.
And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask questions just on the fly. Uh, I'm sure you're probably used to being grilled like that, but what I'd like to start out with, in light of our conversation that we had, is I'd like to get an idea of who your dad was. What? Can you tell me who your dad is, uh, his character, how he related to people, what you thought of him as a father? That's where I want to start this.
Okay. What relevance does this have to um, what we're
Well,
doing here?
well, because I'm always interested in uh, especially men's relationships with their father. I didn't have a very good upbringing. Uh, uh, I it was pretty abusive, but so so it's just an interest of mine.
Okay.
When I'm gauging a person, a lot of times I'll find answers to who they are as a person, you know. But believe me, if it's something that's uncomfortable, we would definitely don't want to go there.
Actually, you're the first person who has ever approached me like this. So I get where you're coming from. So that is a great or question to ask.
We're going to get to the point where him as a sheriff, uh, how he dealt with people, because I'm hoping to hear some stories that involve his agency, the sheriff department and things like that. So I just want to just get a background of y'all's relationship and just the dynamics,
Ooh,
because it'll answer a lot of questions for me. Sometimes when you
yeah.
answer something, sometimes it gives me, I worked at a fire department with 45 other men. Believe
Mm-hmm,
me, I saw the whole gamut of relationships with fathers, including my
mm-hmm,
own, and how that affected people. uh,
mm-hmm.
and I know it's the way it's why I am the way I am. So
Correct.
yeah, so that's
Okay.
that's the only reason I'm asking.
Okay. So I'll give you a quick rundown. It'll make complete sense. Uh, However, I do see where you're coming from because it can. I just never thought about it in that aspect. Okay, so um, not my biological father. Before I was born, drafted, bounced to Vietnam, crew chief on Chinooks. I countless being shot down. Many 4 Bronze Stars. Just I don't want to say your average Vietnam vet, but uh, not your average grunt. Put it
Right.
to you that way. All right. Uh, very quiet about his service up to a point. All my life, like you, I've been around law enforcement growing up as long as I can remember. All the family members, uh, we would come home after school, and there'd be 8 cop cars out front, and they're all playing poker. So it's all part of my DNA. Uh, the relationship that I had with him, the number one son, not biological, but treated differently because I was not his biological son. However, I was the top dog. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Anything that needed to be done, I took care of it. There wasn't no goofing off after school. When I hit 13, you got to get a job. Uh, Basically, a hard ass, but in a way that shaped me to the man that I am today.
No
If that
doubt.
makes sense. I mean,
No doubt.
no messing around. Um,
I don't know.
Nothing but.
I don't know if you'll relate to this or not, but my dad an ex-con, out of federal prison. I didn't really know him until he got out when I was in third grade. So from that point on, we bought some land, had a small farm. I was worked to death. I mean, every day he would even let me stay home from school because there'd be so much work to do. He'd write me notes to stay home from school, and he'd have a list of things that has to get done every day, and there's no questions asked. You did it, and it better be done. I mean, I'd have to get up in the middle of the night in my underwear in a snowstorm and and have to go out with just boots on all the way out to a pond and cut a hole in the ice because I forgot to during the day, and he'd find out. So I get what you're saying, man. The the work ethic that you and I seem to put into our craft right now is definitely influenced by that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was either working, list to do, like you said, or we would be out in the woods doing outdoor stuff, tradecraft. He was a badass. I owe him my work ethic. I owe him my love of the outdoors, and but just cold, and it's just how he was, being law enforcement and dealing with the public. Anyways, so I could say on a scale of 1 to 10, he was a 10, but then also a 0. But other than that, man, we were. It was just him and I. Now I've got twin brothers and some other sisters, but none of them were raised outdoorsmen or anything like that. He just, for some reason, saw it in me to drag my butt out no matter what. We're going. He would pick me up from school, opening deer season. I mean,
yeah,
we were a unified group as far as father and son. Real quick story here. We were 5 miles from Biscuit Ridge, out Mill Creek Road, out of Walla Walla. And right now, a home was built. But anyways, there used to be a archery range there, outdoors, where you could practice. They had you could practice stalking on decoys. Anyways, so we were camped there, and we were elk hunting up above what's called Clicker Strawberries Farm by Kuskuski. And we got caught in a snowstorm, and we were completely snowed in. And we couldn't, this was before cell phones, and we were supposed to be back in Walla Walla to call home at a certain day. Well, on the third day, we were snowed in. We were stuck. Here comes the sheriff department on snowmobiles coming in to rescue us. So we got to sit in a tent for 3 days in a snowstorm. So, I mean, we have a lot of cool memories. But as far as the love of the outdoors, man, that was drilled into me. And then him being a Vietnam vet, now I know what he did, and just everything most of the stuff. I had already pre-planned to join the Army before graduating high school, but I didn't tell anybody. Already had the paper signed. The day I turned 18, went and told my family, and he was, you're not going. You know, he didn't want me to be subjected to, and right off the bat, here comes the Panama invasion, Operation Just Cause. And so I did the right thing by doing what I felt in my heart was to follow in his footsteps, but not with their consent. It was what I knew I needed to do. So, Jason, I don't regret it.
I just want to say, and this goes without saying, that throughout this whole conversation, I appreciate what you've done. And so just if I don't mention it, over and over again, I'm thinking it. So keep that in mind. Okay.
Understand. As far as being a sheriff deputy, we were living in a town called Cougar, Washington, at the southwest corner of Mount St. Helens. We were able to stay in our home, even though 99% of the area had been evacuated, because he was the sheriff deputy there. He had to make the rounds every day because people were coming. Like
the last man on the ship.
Pretty much. Exactly. We're going down. I'm staying. But his job was to prevent looters from coming in because people were sneaking in to break into homes. And then all of a sudden, there was no phones. Everything was down. All of a sudden, we heard thump, 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 thump. And here comes a Huey, lands in the field next to our house to get us out, our family out, because the geological scientist says she's getting ready to blow. And I think I was 10. I want to say about 90 minutes later, she blew. So
Wow.
we were close.
Ooh,
We were pretty close. And then when he went to go back in to do, after FEMA and everybody came and all the military, we were all in a FEMA camp in a town called Longview, Washington. And he had to go back in to go survey the damage and bring people in because he knew all the roads and everything. And I got to sit with him and got to see some pretty, there was a lot of bad stuff that a kid my age shouldn't have seen at that time.
Right.
But after that, we were at the FEMA camp for, I think, 8 months. And I got to see how the government works. Being 10 years old, I mean, it was pretty cool how everybody was taken care of and such. But him being the sheriff deputy in his particular area, it was pretty cool to go back in and see just what Mother Earth can do when she's mad.
Right. Well, he was probably being in his position of the sheriff deputy of that particular area. He was probably in on a lot of the conversations from that point on, about logistics and strategy and things like that.
Everything.
Yeah. So, and of course, we're here for the subject of Bigfoot. Was that ever anything that in y'all's vernacular back then? Was Bigfoot even something that you or him ever talked about at all?
We have discussed this years ago, and I asked him about all the stories of the military coming in, removing possible evidence, etc. And he says, no, never once did it come up. Now, he's an honest man. If he told me that, he never heard it.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean it never occurred, but not during their daily briefs or anything that he would have heard through rumor or gossip. Or no, he just said no recollection of it, and he flat out just says no, never happened.
Now, well, with all of your experiences through your career and service and all that, even that everybody's on a need to know basis, and there's a lot of times you're not told on purpose because you don't need to know.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Now the the helos were 24 hours taking off, doing their work, coming back. The Chinooks, I mean, the OH-6 little scouts. I mean, it was 24/7 ops. So possible, like you said, need to know basis. But I truly believe that somebody would have leaked something, just something, and then because we had nothing else to talk about. We're bored. We're stuck in this, not like a concentration camp. I mean, but FEMA camp. I just don't.
That's a sensible way to look at it. I mean, and really, that what is the most sensible way probably is the truth. It's probably a sensational story made up by one of the many of the flesh peddlers in this arena that comes up with whatever they can to create clicks and likes and hits and things like that.
Understand.
So yeah, I mean, I understand completely. But at some point in your life, Bigfoot did become a subject matter.
That's easy. That's very easy. After we lost our home, there was nothing left. He got reassigned to work on the Tualaip Indian Reservation, which is near Marysville, Washington. And I don't know what he did. He was working for the government at the time. He didn't say. So he got transferred from being the sheriff deputy to this job where he drove from our house to Everett and back 5 days a week. I don't know what he did, but where we lived was on the Tualaip Indian Reservation, and it was one road in, and then it would branch off and go to all the little sub streets, etc. But I will never forget that as you drove in or come out was two giant totem poles sticking up, made out of whatever coniferous trees they were. But each totem pole was a Sasquatch.
What year was this?
This was 1981 through 84. So being 11 through 14, 15, it was two Sasquatches with a giant orca over the top, and they were holding each end of the orca. So it was two giant Sasquatches reaching up and holding an orca in the air on one end. And it dawned on me one day when I'm coming through a school bus, I asked the school bus driver, basically, what are those monkeys doing? Holding that orca up, well, killer whale. She says, no, those are Bigfoot. And I'm like, Bigfoot? What's Bigfoot? And then I started looking at going to the library and looking up stuff like that, and kind of got fascinated with it at that point in time. And that's my first recollection of it being put in my brain. And I'll never forget the two totem poles with the orca up top. I didn't go to the school because that was for the reservation kids. So us white kids or others were bused to the local school in Marysville. Just how it worked back then. But that was my first implant and my first visual in my mind of, and I use the term Sasquatch. So whenever I speak, it's always Sasquatch. So that's my first memory of Sasquatch.
Wow, very good. So at that point, in your quest for information, in your quest for knowledge, like most of us, the moment you decide I'm going to look into this and you start checking out books and going to the library and stuff like that, did you ever have a conversation with your dad and ask him if he knew anything about this subject?
No,
Wow.
just myself. I would ask other kids, other children, or on the res. None of them. I was too young then. I don't recall, but no, I didn't ask them then.
So how did you get to the point where you are now? There had to be a starting point where you said, "Okay, I've gone out. I've paid attention to details. Now something happened that's got me thinking these things are possibly real." Can you take me to that point?
2013.
Lay it on me.
July 31st, 2013. My family and I, my wife, my son, my daughter, and our dog decided to go take a hike in Ferry County, Washington, on a Forest Service trail called the Hoodoo Canyon Trail. It's a maintained Forest Service trail that's way up on a road called Dead Man Creek. When you get to the trailhead, it's a flat, like, campground area. Lots of people hike this trail. So it's not a hard, like, got to get through stuff. I mean, it's a trail.
No bushwhacking.
No, it's maintained by the Forest Service. People come from all around to hike these trails because it's part of the Pacific Crest Trail System.
Okay.
And we have walked this trail so many times because we're an outdoor family. I raised my children just like my dad raised me, outdoors. We're going to go out, we're going to camp, we're going to hike, we're going to fish, we're going to rock climb. I mean, I exposed them to everything I could. But this particular trail is our favorite. It's 1.7 miles up the trail to a lookout, not a lookout tower. But when I say lookout, it's a flat spot where it overlooks this Hoodoo Canyon. So as you're walking up, the goal is to get to this flat ledge where then you can just sit and overlook this beautiful, pristine part of the Colville National Forest. It's just beautiful, untouched. So our goal was to get up there by sunset, just as the sunset, and to enjoy the view. And it's worth the walk. It's beautiful. So we all jump in the truck, and this was, again, July 31st, midweek, about 101 degrees. But once we got there, we were going to be in the shade most of the time. So we weren't worried about it being too hot. The most important thing I want to point out was this time of the year in my area, end of June through about the middle of August, is when the huckleberries in our area are prime. And I call it forest candy because you can't stop eating them. Once you get one, you're addicted. And then you turn purple. I mean, your lips are purple, your tongue's purple. So it was prime huckleberry season. And so when we got there, we decided to leave our little generic flip phones in the truck for two reasons. One, there's no cell service where we're going, zero. Two, we'd walked this trail so many times that we don't need camera. We don't need our phones. And we didn't bring water because there's one spot where you can stop and get spring water out this rock crevice. It just pours out like a faucet, and you can, better than any bottled water you've ever had. So we had our plan, and here we go. So the first stretch of the hike where the trailhead starts, it dumps down about a 35 degree angle down, and you kind of work your way down to the bottom. And at the bottom is Dead Man Creek. Oh, maybe a foot deep. Then you got to cross a bridge. And then you got to start working your way up to these switchbacks. And that's the hardest part for most people because it's probably 75 degree angle uphill, but the switchbacks, it takes you a while to get up there. So my son, who's 13 at the time, my son, who's 17 at the time, he was in the lead. Then it was myself, my daughter, who was 13, my wife, and our dog following up in the rear. He's a German Shepherd. And again, we've walked this trail so many times that we know where my son's going to stop and wait for us. We know where to stop and take a rest, etc. So anywho, my son just bounding ahead, just full of energy, just working his way up. And he gets out of sight, and we're working our way up the switchbacks. My son is stopped in a particular spot, and he's like, come here. And I walk up to him. He says, Dad, there's something over there. So he's pointing horizontal to us over, I want to say, guesstimate, maybe 500 to 700 yards away from us. He says, there's something over there in the brush making a lot of noise. And I thought to him, or I said to him, it's probably a moose working its way through the thick timber, downfall. And nope, no, no big deal. Let's just go. So he again starts taking off. He gets up a couple hundred yards later or more, and he stops again. And he says, Dad, it's over there. Again, I hear it. So he heard it down below, working his way up, heard it again. So again, it's horizontal to us. Now, I again said, son, it's probably just the bull moose working its way through the timber, or possibly free range cattle. No big deal. Let's go. Come on. I lost count of how many times that he had stopped and said, it's over there. I was not concerned at all. He gets up again, bounds up again, and there's this one spot where we stop and we rest. And he's there and he's looking down, and he says, Dad, it's down there. It's right down there. So as I catch up, here comes my wife and our daughter. And our dog, he comes bebopping up. We all start hearing it. Again, horizontal to us. And the best way I can describe it is it was blatant noise, whatever was making it. It was not the normal sound of an animal or a deer, moose, etc. Yeah, you might hear it every once in a while when it makes a slip, or its antlers might get caught on a branch it wasn't paying attention. But this was intentional noise being made, almost like breaking a stick over your knee a couple times. So all four of us heard it. I looked down at my dog, and he's all looking down. No, he's listening to the sound. Now I poo-pooed it off. I just says, again, it's got to be a moose that's working its way up as we're going up. So at that point in time, this was the first time all four of us and our dog had heard what my son kept hearing. Now, at this point in time, the trail flattens out. It's just a gentle grade going up, working its way up through the timber, through open areas, through thick cedar, beautiful, easy walk, just nice and strolling. And we're walking single file. And my son, at this one particular point, knows the lookout is right ahead. And he just takes off, boom, running as fast as he can, because he wants to be there first. He wants to, I got you. I beat you all here. And we get to the lookout. Now, again, I called us the lookout because it's a flat ledge and we just sit there and enjoy the view. And he's not there. Instantly, I get this feeling something bad has happened, because right at the lookout, it drops down. It's 120 feet straight down. Then it's the flat ledge where we sit, maybe 30 by 30 square feet. And then to our back, it's a 30 to 45 foot vertical wall going up. So it makes an L shape, like a bench. My wife catches up. She sees me and she knows something's wrong. She asks me, where's Hunter? I says, I don't know. And we start yelling for him. We're yelling, and I'm looking over the edge, just hoping I don't see him at the bottom. And we're just screaming for him to answer, because there's nowhere to go. All of a sudden, he pops his head from the rock wall behind us. He's peeking down. He says, Dad, I'm up here. I look up and I'm like, get down here. What are you doing? He's like, hold on. I says, get down here right now. So he shimmies his way down on his butt, slides down, gets to the ground. Now I'm not mad, but I was scared. I says, I thought you fell off the edge. He's like, no, Dad, hold on. I'm like, what? He goes, when I got to the lookout, I turned around to look up at the rock wall behind me, and there was a guy looking over. I'm looking at him like, whatever. He goes, Dad, there was a guy looking over the edge. And I says, there's no guy, dude. I don't know what you saw, but there is nobody parked down below. And I didn't believe him. Didn't believe him. So we're sitting on this little shelf, this bench, and the sun is starting to set behind the mountain. Just beginning to. So now I know we have a certain amount of time to get from where we're at back to the truck right at dark. So I decided to tell everybody, let's boogie. Let's go. We've had enough. And we were all in agreement. So at this point, my wife, my son, and our dog start to head back. At this point in time, because it's going to start to get dusk, the sun's going to start to set in a little bit. It's going to get a little bit more darker. So I'm bringing up the rear for safety reasons. Our dog's in the front. So we start walking single file. So from the lookout ledge to this spot where I know my wife and my son and our dog are going to sit and wait is 500 yards, 600 yards from where we're starting to head back. So I know that they're not going to go and get out of my sight. I know that they're going to work their way ahead and stop. So my daughter is in front of me and we're walking real slow, grabbing a few more huckleberries. And all of a sudden, I feel the most intense feeling, spidey senses going off. Danger, danger, alert, alert. Just that feeling of something's up, something ain't right. So I stop. And my daughter is maybe 10 feet in front of me, and she's 13. She stopped and she was picking a few huckleberries. Now, at this point in time that I stopped, I'm looking ahead at my wife and my son. I couldn't see our dog, but they made a right-hand turn. Then they had to make a left-hand turn, and then they would just drop down gently, and then it would be out of sight. But I know where they were going to be sitting. So right as I saw them disappear out of my view, I'm still standing still. My spidey senses are going off. And I just slowly turned my head to the left. Not my body, just my head. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement. So now I need to turn a little more. And now I'm at a 45-degree angle. 30 feet from us, my daughter and I. Within arm's length of the trail, there was this tamarack, or I call it a spruce tree, but I can't remember the exact species. But right at arm's length from the trail, there was this tree, and there was this juvenile Sasquatch sitting with its back against this tree like this. The boughs of the tree just inches over the top of its head, waist deep in huckleberry bushes. So all I could see was his torso, his abdomen, his torso, his chest, and everything, face, hair. Right now, as I'm recalling it, it's in slow motion, but this happened so fast. So I turned around and I called my daughter gently. I go, Haley, getting her attention. She turns around and looks at me, and she goes, Dad, I don't want any more huckleberries. I've had it. Let's go. Because she thought I was wanting to point out, another big bunch of huckleberries. And I go, no, come here. She takes a couple steps towards me. Now she's looking at me, and I go, look right there. Look right there. Now she's facing me. She peeks over my shoulder, and she goes, holy fucking shit, it's a Sasquatch. I go, shut up, shh. Because I didn't want her to scare this, what we're looking at. And I go, shh, come here. So now we both turned around 180 degrees, and we're facing it straight as I'm looking at you. This little guy, now I don't mean little by no means, but this little juvenile Sasquatch, it was sitting in a perfect spot where, as a human being would walk by, you wouldn't catch it out of the corner of your eye, because he was sitting up against this tree, so well hidden. And so he was watching my wife, my dog, and my son walk by. Then my daughter walked by. I walked by. And the only reason why it got caught was because my senses felt that predatory feeling. But it sat there, and it continued to watch us back and forth. We're making eye contact with it continuously. So we're having this three-way stare down. And the whole time we're sitting here looking at this Sasquatch, it's picking huckleberries one at a time, like it's eating popcorn in a movie. Just sitting there, just one at a time.
Wow.
Now, while I'm sitting here, I am taking photographic memory shots of its anatomy. Reason I'm doing this is my profession that I'm retired from. So I am fascinated with its anatomy. Not only the encounter, but how close we are to it. I got to observe every part of this Sasquatch's body, from the belly button up to the top of its head. This little guy was so meticulously clean. And when I say juvenile, I'm guesstimating this because we don't know the ages of these beings. We don't know how they age. We don't know how long their lifespan is, but you can tell from the aging of its skin, just like you could tell, a teenager versus somebody my age or your age. No wrinkles, no scars, nothing that stood out. Just the most softest, smoothest skin, but jacked. I mean, he was buffed. Just huge pecs, traps, his butt. I mean, he was just huge for his size. His hair was parted down the middle, and it just kind of was gently waving down just to its shoulders, just below its ears. So no longer than his shoulders. His eyes were a dark brown, almost a dark chocolate brown. And I could clearly see his pupils. So his irises were just the most happy chocolate brown. And then his pupils, just like a human's eyes. Perfect. His skin, I always try to explain it this manner. His skin was the color of peanut butter, generic peanut butter. And he did not have the long hair the thick, I call it like the Jack Link's commercial, that generic, when you think about just a hair suit. No, he had, there was hair on his body, but you could see through the hair. And I could, just his anatomy is what I'll never forget. So again, we're sitting there having this three-way stare down, and I look at my watch, and I know that we've been here for about 5 minutes, just under 4 minutes. It reaches out, it picks a huckleberry, and it offers it to us, reaches out and extends its arm. All I had to do was take 2 to 3 steps, and I would have been able to grab it from him. There was no way I was going to do that. Zero. So it realized I wasn't taking the offering, and it just took this huckleberry and ate it. And again, it continued to do this the whole time we're watching it. Now, my daughter and I are not talking. We are not talking at all. We're just standing here observing this guy. Now, I look at my watch. Now it's 7 minutes. And I think now we've been here too long, because something's not right. I started to feel a little nervous. I didn't want to let my daughter know I was getting a little on edge. I was carrying a weapon, but it was hidden underneath my t-shirt. At no point in time did I ever feel the need to, the thought never crossed my mind about my firearm. Zero. Because this encounter, how I tell it, was peaceful, beautiful, something that was gifted to my daughter and I in a manner that I don't think anybody has ever, in my opinion, had a, being a father, I felt I should go up to it and like, where are your parents at? You know, like a child at the park who's kind of looking around for his parents, kind of that. I had that thought in my head, but still, no, do not get any closer.
Can I
Now,
ask you, can I interject something here?
please, please.
Do you think that the uneasy feeling that you had when you reached the 6, 7, 8 minute mark, for a time frame of how long you were being held up there, that with your tactical thinking, with your combat experiences and all that kind of stuff, were you somewhat possibly thinking in your subconscious that what's happening to my family now, if this one is keeping me engaged here?
I felt it was a trap. That's what went through my mind. This is a decoy. I could not think of any other reason why this young little guy was posted up so close to us and had not either gotten up and moved. It didn't give any gestures to get away, but it just sat there monitoring us while it was eating. But at the 7 minute mark, that's when my alarm went off. Get out. There, danger, danger. Right at that point, I told my daughter, go, real quietly. Just turn around and go. And as I told her to go, I looked up ahead and I could see my wife and my son heading back, because we should have already been where they're at. So she decided to come back and find out what we were doing. Just as she got into my visual field, I pointed to her. I said, stop, grab the dog, and stay. Exactly. So she did. Because I didn't want my dog coming up in the lead, and then all of a sudden he might see or sense this guy. And now, anyway, so that's why we got out of there. My dog's going to play a very important part here soon. So as we start to leave, and I tell my daughter quietly, go, she starts to take a few steps. On my second step, as I'm heading away, I have to take one more look over my shoulder. And just as I turned and looked, instead of where he was at, he had already gotten up. And I say he, because as he took his last stride into the timberline, I could see his genitalia. It was a male. And then he took his last step and was into the dark timber. So he was working away from us as we're heading down the trail. So as we were leaving, that's when he got up. I just wish I could have caught more as he was standing up to observe more of the anatomy and the behavior or any other additional information in my mind that I could capture. So we get up to my wife, my son, and our dog. My wife's like, what are you? She's chewing me out, basically. And I says, honey, look, just hold on. Let's get over to the area and sit down, and we're going to tell you what's going on. So, of course, she believes us. Now I'm telling my son, Hunter, I am so sorry. Because what he was telling me about a man looking over, now I'm putting that together with what my daughter and I just saw. And I asked him, I says, you said it was a man. What we saw looked like a little teenager. He goes, no, Dad, this looked like an old man peeking over. Okay, so now I'm like, two? Okay, we need to get off this hillside. We need to get back to the truck. Now, one thing very important that I want to make clear is that where it was sitting, the sun was setting to the west. There was enough sunshine still coming through that was illuminating its left side. So the sun rays were coming down, and I could see very well its left side of its body, the left side of its face. The other side, of course, was in the shade. But there was enough sunlight that there was no way I'll ever forget. Like, I just can't stress the muscle structures of this juvenile. So there was enough sunlight that I could pick out all the things I was wanting to memorize. Because people have asked me, oh, how it must have been real dark because you said the sun was setting. Well, not completely set at this time. So as we're working our way down, the sun went behind the Kettle Crest Range. And at this point in time, the coyotes in the area, they just start roll call. They just start howling. I mean, just going off. I want to say 4 to 5 miles to the west, there was a vocalization, not a scream, not a howl, but a yell that was so powerful, it shut those coyotes up. Just zoop, not another peep out of them. So I look at my wife, and my wife goes, that's 3. And I'm like, yeah, let's get up, let's get home. So the whole ride home, that's all we talk about. That's all we're talking about. If I had brought our camera or our cell phone, would it have occurred? I doubt it. Just how it probably would have went. Regret, nothing you can do about it. Anywho, so we were talking about how stupid we were for not bringing our phones with us. Anyways, so we get home, and we had already had plans to go camping that weekend. So we decide as a family that night that we want to go back to that same spot because we were going to go somewhere else. And my kids asked if they could bring a friend of the family, a friend of theirs, another, I don't want to say his name, but a friend of theirs. And I said, sure, bring them up. Now,
Hey, Jason.
yeah,
Man, I'm so sorry. I should just raise my hand so that I don't say something that stops your flow of storytelling.
that's
But
okay.
can I go back to what happened up there on the ledge when you and your family showed up and you thought that Hunter had gone over the edge, and yet he was up that 30-foot cliff behind you because he saw the old man looking over. What was his goal to go up there when he thought it was a man? Uh, to just see who it was,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
and did anything happen while he was up there?
I've asked him that. Uh, and all he said was that he thinks the time it took for him to climb up this rock wall gave it enough time to get off and leave. Because once you get up to the top, um, there's not a whole lot of it's an open flat rock just slab. Uh, so I he's always asked if he can climb that rock wall when we've gone up there, and I've always told him no. I don't want you climbing up that rock wall. If you want to go up top, go around and come up from the backside, cut through the brush. But something just made him want to shimmy up there. But no, when he got up there, there was nothing. But he was curious about what he saw. And and when that's a great question. And when I would talk to him about it, I says that was very dangerous, because if that had been like a homeless person or somebody living off the grid or whatever, you could have something bad could have happened. So don't do that again. Stay put. But no, when he got up there was nothing.
All right, so y'all gathered up your family again for a camping trip, and this time you're bringing along some of your children's friends.
Just one.
Just one.
Correct. And he's my boy. He's my boy. I mean, he's family. I love him to death. Broken home, no dad in his life, so kind of father figure to him. So of course he's just happy to go. So
does he have a nickname? Does he have a nickname or anything that you could freely say without it giving away who he is?
Luke.
Okay.
Yeah. So Luke, Haley, Hunter, my wife, myself, and our dog. We're packed. Now, we already had our camper packed, ready to go, except for perishables, which we kind of collected all that stuff that night, put it all in the camper. Everywhere I go, I have my pack. Now, at this point in time, not into Sasquatch at all. So my backpack is set up for when I go out into the bush, hike, stay 2 or 3 nights. It's set up in that manner. Not what I do now, completely different. But at this point in time, I have my backpack, all my survival gear, all my emergency stuff in there, and other ancillary items. So that's always with me. But on the hike up, there was no need to bring it, because we walked so many times. So I made sure my backpack was in the truck. We talked about where to go, and everybody agreed, let's go back. Now, we weren't going back to go look for this little guy again, because we all were saying there's no way they're going to be in there. This was just a chance of a lifetime event. But we wanted to go back because curiosity also. We wanted to go back and show them where it happened. But again, just to go out on our pre-planned camp that we'd already decided the next weekend coming up. So fast forward. So we get there the next day, and I needed to describe the camp spot, because it's very important here. So I'm going to do my best to elucidate the area. When you pull in off the main road coming up, now we're on the Colville National Forest. There is nothing out there for miles. for miles. And then you pull in, and it is a flat area. It's about 150 yards in length. At the trailhead, as I described earlier, it just dumps down into this ravine where Dead Man Creek runs through. Then on the west side of the camp spot, there's a little small canyon that runs and connects to the Dead Man Creek. Then there's another one to our left, a little ravine that also drops down. So where we're at, we're on a flat spot, dumps down in front of us to the creek, and then two little draws on the east and west side of us. So it kind of makes a not a U, but almost a square shape. So we're camped at the far east side of this flat spot, and then this open field. So we're all setting up camp. The kids are goofing off. They're down at the creek playing in the water. The wife's tinkering in the camper. I'm bucking up firewood, splitting it, stacking it. This was this was August 1st. So July 31st, and then we went back the next day, which was August 1st. So we have camp set up, and the kids again are all out just goofing off.
So this is about 2 miles. This is about 2 miles from the lookout, right?
It's 1.7.
Okay.
1.7. Exactly from where we were parked and camped to the lookout, it's 1.7 miles. So it starts to get dark, and of course, get the campfire going. Caveman TV, let's get it going. And we're sitting around the campfire. Not a cloud in the sky. One of those crystal clear nights, full moon, maybe I believe 80 to 90% illumination. So it was one of those crystal clear, warm summer nights. Perfect to be sitting outside and sitting around a campfire. So we set up the camp chairs, and then we set up another camp chair for our dog. This goofy butt, he likes to get up in the camp chair and kind of squirrel around, and he gets nestled in, and he just loves to sit like we do, staring into the coals wherever our mind goes. And we're sitting around this campfire, of course, doing the same old thing. Kids are cooking s'mores and hot dogs and whatever. Having a good time. Good time. Now, where we were at, off to my right, as I'm standing, I'm looking towards the trailhead. Off to my right, it's an open field. I'm going to just round it off to 100 yards. And then that's where this ravine dumps down. So we're sitting at the campfire. The kids are done eating. They're full. They're kind of just like had too much sugar. They're starting to have that sugar dump, and everybody's kind of getting drowsy. And our dog, he is out cold, not snoring, but he's out. And all of a sudden, he lifts his head up, and he just focuses on the spot just to the left of the trailhead. And it's a tree line. So it's nothing. It's dark. You can't see nothing down in there. Just dumps down. And he's looking, and he's thinking, and we're all watching him like, what are you doing? What are you looking at? My dog has never barked at anybody. He doesn't growl. He is the sweetest, kindest. We got lucky with him. Perfect pet, perfect family member. He jumps out of that camp chair and he flies to the tree line, right to the edge of the trailhead where it dumps down. And he's standing right at the tree line and he's looking down and he is not growling. He's not making a sound, but he is just jacked on alert. Something down there has his attention. Now, as much time as we've put our feet on the ground in the woods, me and this dog, we've been around every animal in the woods. Grizzly bears, wolves, so many wolves, cougars, bobcat, lynx, raccoons, you name it, he's seen it. He's used to everything. I thought, for some reason in my mind, that a cougar was sneaking up on us. That's what went through my mind, because his behavior was protection mode, which I'd never, ever seen him do this before, ever. So this behavior was so out of his norm. And we're all sitting around the campfire looking at him like, what is it? But he won't turn around. He's not paying any attention to us. Okay, so now I need to go get him. I need to go over, see what he's looking. I mean, I'm not going to be able to see what he's looking at, but I'm going to go over, try to get him. I grab him by his collar and I start to tug on him a little bit. And he's pushing back. He's like, no, let me do my job. And I'm like, come on, let's go. He's like, no. So I let go. And I'm looking down and I can't see anything. It's pitch black. Even though with the full moon up, it's just pitch black down there. So my family, my kids, and our friend, they're all watching me try to get our dog back. And my wife's like, get him back here. Whatever it is, get him back. Come on, I'm working on it. And I pull again, and he's fighting me hard this time. He won't let go. He won't let go of his stance. So now I'm getting concerned a little bit. I'm like, what does he see or sense? And I can't see. So bottom line is this. Finally, I says, dude, come on, Blitz. His name was Blitz. I grabbed him by his collar and I pulled harder. And at that point in time, he kind of looked up at me and reluctantly moped back to the campfire. Like, okay, you're telling me to come back. I'll do it. So I expected him to get back up in his camp chair and work his way to his little spot. Nope. He sat in front of the campfire between us and the tree line and just sat there and stared. Just kept staring. So I'm just telling everybody, don't worry. Whatever comes up out the dark, I got it. What I meant by that is I'm armed. They know I am, but I said, I got it. You guys, we're all good. Don't worry. So they go back to talking, and my son, he's sitting in the camp chair looking at the campfire. My wife, we're just kind of chit-chatting for a few minutes. Then all of a sudden, at the same time, almost as if it was planned to the second, all hell broke loose down in that, off that hillside. What I mean by that is whatever was down there just started breaking limbs, smashing debris, just absolutely going, having just an intentional destructive fit down there with whatever it could grab and smash and break. And just, I just call it a bitch fit. It was completely just going off. At the same time, 100 yards to our right in this ravine, same activity, and just 20 to 25 yards to our left in this other ravine, the same activity. So we've got 3 sides of us with the same commotion going on, just smashing, crashing, breaking stuff. You could hear logs boom against trees, and then as they hit the tree, you could hear them crunch in half and then hit the ground. And this just kept going on and on and on. None of us were scared. That's a big point I'd like to make. None of us were scared at this moment, but we couldn't figure out what was going on. So our dog, he gets up and he runs back to the tree line, and he's looking down and he starts to growl. He's getting really more aggressive, and it's still going off down there. So, oh man. So I run to the camper, and I come back with a flashlight that's got high intensity lumens, and I just light up this area. Nothing, not a single thing I could see down there. And I'm looking up in the trees. I'm blading it around, looking, trying to get all these different angles. Nothing. But when I was looking down at that area, it stopped. But to my right and to our left, they kept going. All right, so I turned the flashlight off, went back to the campfire. It starts up again down there. Now, this is going on and on and on. And we're sitting here just like, we weren't scared. But it went on so long that my daughter and their friend Luke went into the camper. They had enough. They're like, we're just going to go inside and go do our thing. So I went in the camper and I grabbed a Generation 1 night vision binocular with an IR illuminator. So I went over to the spot again. I lit the area up, looking. Nothing. As I would walk back, it would start up again. Okay, so this is continuing for hours. Now, it wasn't a continuous. There would be little breaks in action, 5-10 minutes of quietness. But on one side, it kept up, or it would stop over here, and then this one would start up. But it was still on 3 sides of us. So finally, my wife, she had it. She's like, I'm going to go in the camper and read. I mean, none of us were scared, and none of us thought what it could be. We just all, I don't know what was going through our heads. I have no explanation. We've talked about it, but nobody has come up with what they thought it was. So my wife is in the camper. My daughter and their friend is in the camper. And now it's just myself and my son and our dog. So after maybe another half an hour of this going on, I just finally just yelled out, knock it off. I just, whatever's out there, will you knock that crap off? And I said it multiple times and in each direction. They didn't knock it off. They just kept going. So my son, he's sitting in his camp chair, and he's 17. And he's staring into the coals. And I look at my watch, and it's just a few minutes after midnight. He gets up, and the best way I can describe this is he stands up very slowly and almost this robotic action, this motion of stiffness, but slow, deliberate. He stands up. He walks around his camp chair. and very slowly walks off into the dark, just out of the campfire illumination, just at that barrier where you can't see anybody past the light of the campfire. The moonlight was shining down onto this field enough that you could see somebody out standing in the field. It would also cast the shadow. It was that bright. But I knew that, you know, he was just going to get up. In my mind, I knew he was just going to go take a leak or stretch his legs. That's what went through my mind. So I wasn't concerned. Now, this commotion was still going on in front of us, to our right and to our left. So I start to think, man, he's been gone a while. Doesn't take that long to go to the bathroom. So I kind of look over, and again, into this field. If he was standing in the middle of this field, I would see him by the moonlight, and he wasn't there. So kind of look at my watch again, and a couple minutes go by. Right at that point, he yells out, "Dad." Not a scream, but he's getting my attention. This very loud, I'm not going to yell, but "Dad," like that. Now, when I heard that call for me, boom, I am flying as fast as I can in the direction where he's calling from. Reason why I couldn't see him when I looked is that he had walked the whole length of that open field, which is just averaged at 100 yards where he was at. And he was standing right at the tree line where it dumps down into this ravine. That's why I couldn't see him, because it was so dark where he was standing. As I ran up to him, he's looking down into this ravine. I put my right hand on his left shoulder, and I try to turn his body. The same resistance that my dog was showing earlier when I was trying to pull him back, resisting. I can't get him to blade or turn his body towards me. I can't get him to. I'm there, but he's not there. He's himself, but he's staring down into this draw. But I'm looking at him. I'm not looking down into the straw. And I grab his shoulder again, and I pull a little harder, like I did earlier with my dog. And he's resisting me again, a little harder. Right as I realize that he's resisting me, instead of paying attention, looking at him, I decide to turn my head and look at what he's looking at, or trying to see what he's looking at. And right as I turn my head, I am eye to eye, just maybe 5 to 6 feet in front of us, in the dark timber, was the perfect silhouette of a massive, what I now know, or believe I should say, was what was causing all that commotion to the where he was standing. The perfect silhouette of a massive Sasquatch. Now, it was standing down the hill, but its head and eyes were at the same level as ours. So I'm looking into its eyes, holding my son's shoulder while he's fixated. But this only happened this quick. As soon as it made eye contact with me, I need to pause here for a moment. when people talk about eye glow or eye shine, this was eye glow. The most softest amber with just a hint of orange red glow. Not bright, but just enough where you could make it out in its black silhouette. And just enough where I could see its pupils. Now, this is split second. As soon as I looked and made eye contact with it, it spun around and just took off down into the dark timber. Boom, boom, just knocking stuff. Just, I mean, you could just feel its weight as it's running down that hillside, down towards the creek. As soon as it spun around and ran away, my son turned around and looked at me and kind of like almost snapped out of it. And I'm like, get back, let's go. So we walk back to the campfire and sit down. And all my son did was sit in his camp chair and stare at those coals until he stood up and went to bed. He didn't say a word to me. But I truly believe that if my son hadn't called out for me at that moment and I had not wasted 1 second, I think my son would have been taken. I truly, that's my gut feeling. Because I can't explain it. And my son will not talk about it to this day. But something made him stand up out of his camp chair in such an abnormal motion and walk the length of that open field without explanation. So now I figured this out. We're in their area. They don't want us here. That's what they've been trying to do, is scare us off. This is my hypothesis after getting my son back and realizing what was to our right. There has to be one in front of us and there has to be one to the left. So now I'm putting all this together. They must be in this area feeding on the natural resources that are in full bloom, gorging on the huckleberries just like the bears do. So when it's ripe, eat as many as you can. Or we stumbled across where they had just been holding up. Anyways, my hypothesis or my theory is that the day prior, when my daughter and I saw this little guy, we were surrounded. There had to have been more around us. And that's what gave me the feeling to get out at that moment. I felt danger. Then leading up to this event at night, I truly believe to this day, they wanted to do everything they could to get us to leave. But nothing was thrown our way. There was no vocals. There was no screams, nothing. It was just this constant barrage of harassment. I stayed up all night, just being the watchdog, just in case. And just as the forest would wake, just that moment in the morning when all the animals start to wake up, the chipmunks start running around and the birds, it all stopped. All got quiet. And they left, or they just went on or gave up. So we left. We packed up camp and we went 7 miles further up to get out of their area to leave them alone. We all, as a group that next morning, said we need to leave. And
Well, Jason, the thing is, let's just say the next night, some other people came into that campsite. They may have had nothing happen, and it could have all hinged on what happened to you guys the day before. And the fact that more than likely it's the same family cluster that they probably have very little overlap with another clan. I would say there's some overlap in their areas, but probably not enough that because they're competing with each other, for not only resources, but for control of the area or whatever. We could speculate all kinds of things. So more than likely, it was the same creatures that you guys had encountered the day before. So maybe they're like, hey, these are the same people. These are the same people that Junior almost had a conversation with. So maybe they knew you a little bit better than say other campers.
absolutely. My theory is that A, as you just placed this thought in my mind, that little guy, he shouldn't have been where he was at. And us humans came back and they didn't want us there because Junior slipped up or we got too close and they were mad at us for coming back. Or B, we were in their area that they had taken over for whatever, again, resources. And as you mentioned, if it had been somebody else, I doubt, like you said, that would have occurred because maybe they wouldn't have been mad because what happened earlier the day prior didn't happen to these other people. And again, this is people walk this trail all the time.
Right. Right.
And
Can you
who
imagine
knows?
Can you imagine the conversation? Of course, we relate it to how we would converse with our own offspring when we're trying to guide them and show them how to live life. But can you imagine the old man of that family who was peeking over that ledge at your son, and then your son
Yes,
scurried up there, and then later he finds out that Junior tried to give you a berry, in conversation, and so he's like, that is not how you deal with these people. You
exactly.
can peek at them, but you don't offer them huckleberries.
Exactly. Got his butt chewed out.
Right.
Exactly. So I truly believe that they were mad at us for coming back, but not they but not mad enough to be like threatening.
Because they knew that you knew who they are.
I,
That's the
I
difference.
figured it out. Exactly. Yep. So that's what started my obsession with research. So, ready for part two?
Oh, hey,
Okay.
can I go to use the restroom?
Absolutely. Go
Do you,
for it.
do you need to take a restroom break?
Nope, I'm good.
I'm just going to leave this recording. I'm going to go to the restroom. I'm going to come right back.
Okay.
For the heat